The wind howled like a beast across the frozen wasteland. Snow whipped through the air, covering everything in a white, endless sheet. In that storm, an alien mother crawled through the deep snow, clutching her small baby close to her chest. Her arms trembled. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly under the storm's flashes of light. The baby was barely breathing. She tried to shield the infant with her cloak, her body shaking from the cold. Her breathing turned heavy, every breath sending out a small cloud of mist. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were now dim and filled with pain. She had been running for hours after the attack on her village. The raiders had burned everything, and the few survivors scattered into the storm. She didn't know where to go. She only wanted one thing: to keep her baby alive. The storm grew stronger. Her legs felt heavy like stone. She fell to her knees. The baby whimpered softly, its tiny fingers brushing her face. Tears rolled down her cheeks, freezing instantly. She pressed her forehead against the baby's and whispered softly, her voice trembling. "Shh, my little one. Sleep. Mama is here. Just sleep." Her voice turned into a faint lullaby, the same song she used to sing when the world was peaceful, when her mate was still alive, when her people still had homes. The song carried through the storm like a ghost's whisper. It was the sound of love and sorrow mixed together, but deep down she knew her child was fading. The baby's skin had turned pale. The breathing grew slow, too slow. Her heart broke piece by piece as she rocked the tiny body in her arms. She looked up to the dark sky and cried, "Please, someone, anyone, save her." But the wind only screamed louder. Then, through the roaring storm, she saw it, a faint red light flickering in the distance. At first she thought it was just her mind playing tricks. She blinked, wiped the ice from her lashes, and looked again. The red light moved, slow, steady, coming closer. Her breath caught. Could it be a rescue signal? Or another hunter coming to finish her off? Her instinct screamed to hide, but she had no strength left. She pulled her baby tighter, covering it with her own body, and waited. The storm carried the sound of footsteps, heavy, slow, crunching over the snow. Then a shadow appeared through the white haze. A tall figure in thick armor, a mask glowing faintly with red lenses. Steam rose from the vents in his suit as he trudged forward, holding a scanning device. His voice came through the wind, deep and rough but filled with worry. "Hello? Is anyone there?" She gasped, her heart racing. The voice, it wasn't alien. It was human, a species her kind once called extinct. Stories said humans had vanished centuries ago, leaving behind only myths. But this man, this voice, it was real. The human stopped when he saw her lying in the snow. He rushed forward, kneeling beside her. Hey, don't move. You're freezing." She tried to speak, but her words came out in broken whispers. Her body shook as she looked up at him, tears mixing with snowflakes. She weakly held out the baby, her hands trembling. "Save her, please." The man's eyes widened behind his mask. "A baby, oh God." He quickly unzipped his suit pocket and pulled out a heat pack. He placed it around the tiny child and checked for breathing. The baby's chest rose faintly. There was still life. He looked at the alien mother. "Stay with me, okay?" "Don't close your eyes," she couldn't answer. Her strength was gone. Her eyelids grew heavy. The last thing she saw was the human wrapping her child in his coat, shielding it from the cold. She smiled faintly. For the first time in hours, warmth touched her heart. The human lifted her into his arms, one arm around her, the other holding the baby close to his chest. Snow swirled around them, but he kept moving, his boots crunching through the ice, his breath heavy but steady. He muttered softly to himself, "Hang on. You're not dying out here. Not today." The blizzard roared louder, trying to bury them. But the man pushed forward step by step until he reached a faint shape in the distance, an old human outpost half buried in the snow. Inside, the lights flickered weakly as the door slammed shut behind him. He laid them down near a heater and removed his helmet. His face was tired, rugged, scarred from old battles. He looked at the alien baby, still breathing faintly, and then at the mother lying motionless beside it. He whispered, "You're safe now, both of you." But deep inside, he knew the storm outside wasn't the only danger. Whatever drove this alien woman into the snow might still be out there, and it might be coming for them next. As he sat beside the faint heater, the human glanced down at the sleeping child in his arms. Its small hand reached out and gripped his finger. The warmth was weak but real. He smiled softly, whispering to the baby, "You're gonna make it, little one. I promise." And outside, in the endless white blizzard, the storm howled like a beast denied its prey. The howling storm battered the small metal shelter buried deep in the snow. Inside, dim emergency lights flickered weakly, fighting against the cold darkness. The old outpost had been abandoned decades ago, left behind after the Great Wars. Its walls were covered with frost, and the heating system groaned like an old creature waking from sleep. Captain Eli Ward sat by the small heater, rubbing his numb hands together. His breath fogged in the frigid air. He glanced toward the two forms lying under emergency blankets, the alien mother and her tiny child. The baby's skin had turned pale blue again, its breathing slow but steady. The mother's condition was worse. Her pulse was faint and her body temperature was dangerously low. Eli frowned. "Come on, hang in there," he muttered, checking the scanner on his wrist. The device beeped weakly, her vitals unstable. He pulled another heat pack from his limited supply and placed it against her chest. The woman stirred slightly, a soft sound escaping her lips. For hours he worked silently, feeding the heater, boiling a small pot of nutrient broth, and trying to adjust the oxygen levels in the room. Outside, the wind roared endlessly, shaking the steel walls. The blizzard showed no sign of stopping. At last, the alien mother's eyes opened. Her gaze was cloudy and confused. She blinked, trying to focus on the strange shape before her, a human man with tired eyes and a face marked by old scars. His uniform was worn, the insignia faded. When he noticed her waking, he smiled slightly. "Hey, easy. You're safe now." She flinched at his voice and tried to move, but her weak body didn't obey. She looked around, panic filling her eyes. Her hand searched for something, the baby. Eli gently lifted the small bundle wrapped in a thermal blanket and showed her. "She's fine," he said softly, still breathing. "You got her here just in time." Tears welled up in the alien mother's eyes. She reached out a trembling hand and touched the child's cheek. Then slowly her gaze turned to the man again. She studied his face, the strange features she had only seen in forbidden records. The legend spoke of humans as destroyers, extinct monsters from an age of war, yet this one had risked his life to save her. She whispered something in her language, soft and melodic. Eli couldn't understand, but he recognized the tone. Gratitude. He smiled, lowering his voice. "You're welcome," whatever you said. For a while, silence filled the small room. The only sound was the hiss of the heater and the storm outside. Eli poured some warm broth into a cup and held it out. "Drink, you'll need strength." She hesitated, staring at it suspiciously. Her kind avoided human food. It was said to be toxic. But hunger and cold forced her hand. She took a sip, then another. Her eyes widened in surprise. It wasn't poison. It was warmth. Eli leaned back, watching her carefully. "You know," he said, "I didn't even think your kind still lived on this side of the range. The scanners don't show any settlements for hundreds of miles." She looked at him, trying to understand. He gestured to his chest. "Eli," he said slowly, tapping his name tag. "Eli Ward." She blinked and then touched her own chest weakly. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra," he repeated, smiling softly. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." Her expression softened a little, though fear still lingered in her eyes. Eli turned toward the small communication console in the corner. The power lines were half frozen, and the antenna was buried in snow. He could try to send a distress signal, but it might also alert whoever attacked her people. He hesitated, then shut the console off completely. No one else could be trusted out here. Hours passed. The storm refused to die. Eli fixed a few cracks in the wall, patched the heating system, and wrapped more insulation around the vents. Lyra watched him silently. Her baby stirred from time to time, and every sound made her flinch with instinctive protectiveness. When Eli sat down again, exhausted, she spoke softly, her alien words slow but emotional. He couldn't understand, but he listened anyway. Then she pointed toward the outside, drawing a shape in the frost. Large wings, flashing lights, and trails of fire. Eli understood that. "Raiders?" he asked. She nodded. Her hand trembled as she drew another small figure, a baby, and then crossed it out with a line of frost. Her voice cracked as she said something like unfit or cast out. Eli's stomach tightened. So that was it. Her people abandoned her and the child to die in the storm. He clenched his fists. Savages, he muttered. Lyra didn't understand the word, but she saw the anger in his eyes, the same anger she once saw in warriors who fought for what was right. She looked down, guilt and grief twisting inside her. Eli leaned forward. "You and your kid, no one's gonna hurt you again, okay?" "I'll make sure of that." His tone was firm, his eyes steady. Something in her heart shifted. For the first time in her life, she felt safe with someone not of her kind. Outside, a faint mechanical sound broke through the storm, a distant hum of engines. Eli froze. He moved to the window, brushed off the frost, and peered into the swirling snow. Far away through the blizzard's white haze, several moving lights appeared. They weren't rescue ships. They were patrol drones, searching. Eli turned off the heater and lights, plunging the shelter into darkness. He moved quietly to Lyra, placing a finger on his lips. "Shh." She held her breath, pulling her baby close. The drone's red light scanned the snow outside. One beam passed over the window, stopping for a moment. Lyra's heart pounded. Eli gripped his rifle tightly, ready to fight if they came closer. But after a tense moment, the drone drifted away, lost in the storm. Eli exhaled slowly, whispering, "They're looking for you." Lyra looked up at him, fear in her eyes. He met her gaze and said softly, "Don't worry. They'll have to go through me first." And for the first time since the blizzard began, she believed him. The storm had finally slowed, but silence brought no peace. Outside, the white landscape stretched endlessly, calm but deadly. Inside the metal shelter, the faint glow from a portable lamp flickered, reflecting on the frost-covered walls. Eli sat near the narrow window slit, rifle across his knees, watching the horizon. His instincts as a soldier never rested. Lyra sat behind him, rocking her baby gently. The infant's weak cry broke the silence now and then, a reminder of why they were still fighting to survive. The child's breath was steady but shallow, the alien serum and human nanogel keeping her alive. Lyra's eyes were tired but full of determination. Eli checked his scanner again. The screen glowed with faint red dots. Movement, multiple contacts approaching from the north. He frowned, muttering under his breath, "So they're back." He stood, adjusting his old combat vest, and quietly moved to the corner where his armor plates rested. He began strapping them on. Lyra noticed his actions and tensed. Her hands gripped her baby protectively. He glanced back at her and spoke in a calm tone. "It's okay. Just routine." But his eyes betrayed the truth. Lyra's instincts picked up the tension in the air. She knew this feeling, hunt. Her people's machines were returning, not to rescue but to erase the shame of leaving her alive. Her clan had strict laws. Anyone deemed unfit or impure was considered a stain. And those who survived abandonment? They were hunted. Eli moved to the small viewport and peered through. The snow shifted as three dark shapes emerged in the distance. Hover drones, scanning beams cutting through the fog. Their engines hummed softly, mechanical and cold. He whispered, 3 units, scanning pattern B-17 military model, damn." Lyra followed his gaze. Her breath caught as she recognized the symbols glowing on the drones. Her clan's crest painted in silver. She had worn that same emblem once before her own people turned their backs on her. Her voice trembled. "They don't come for us." Eli looked at her. "Your people?" She nodded weakly, clutching the baby tighter. "They no allow weak. No allow me." Eli's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before, different species, same cruelty. "They're not taking you," he said quietly, loading his weapon. The drones drew closer, beams sweeping over the frozen outpost. One passed directly over their shelter, its scanner light washing through the frosted glass. Lyra froze, holding her breath. Eli reached out, gently placing a hand over her trembling fingers. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The machine paused. A faint hum filled the air as it scanned the outpost's heat signature. The system beeped softly, detecting something, but then static cut the feed. The blizzard's electromagnetic interference still shielded them partially. Eli leaned close to the wall, whispering to himself, "Come on, move along." After what felt like an eternity, the drones drifted away, disappearing into the snow again. The outpost fell silent once more. Lyra exhaled shakily, tears welling in her eyes. She whispered something in her language, perhaps a prayer or a curse. Eli lowered his rifle, his muscles relaxing slightly. "They won't stop," he said grimly. "If they're using drones, a full patrol's not far behind." Lyra looked down, guilt washing over her. You in danger. Because me? Eli shook his head. Because I chose to help. That's on me. Her eyes softened with confusion. Why? You human, we enemies, he gave a small smile. Maybe once. But right now we're just two people trying not to die in the cold. Lyra stared at him, unable to find words. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Eli stood and began packing supplies. We can't stay here, he said. They'll sweep the whole sector by nightfall. He moved to the console again, checking power reserves. The batteries were low, fuel almost gone. There's an old mining tunnel about 5 clicks south. We move there, use the caves to hide from their sensors. Lyra hesitated, looking at her baby. The child whimpered softly, too weak for long travel. Baby, I can't. Eli knelt in front of her. We'll carry her. I promise she'll make it. The determination in his voice steadied her heart. She nodded slowly. They spent the next hour preparing. Eli salvaged blankets, food packs, and small heat cells. Lyra wrapped her baby tightly against her chest, humming softly to keep the child calm. The lullaby was the same one she had sung before the human found her, soft, haunting, full of love. As they prepared to leave, Eli paused at the door and turned toward her. That song, he said quietly. What does it mean? Lyra looked at him and whispered, Means never give up. He smiled faintly. Good motto. Then the door creaked open and the icy wind slammed against them. The snow had stopped falling, but the world was still a frozen battlefield. Eli led the way, scanning the area, rifle ready. They moved through the white plains, their breath fogging in the cold. Every step crunched loudly in the silence. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of engines echoed again. Lyra stopped suddenly, her eyes widening. From the ridge ahead, 2 figures appeared. Alien soldiers in silver armor, their visors glowing. One raised a scanner. The other held a weapon. Eli froze. They found us, he whispered. The soldier barked something in an alien tongue, pointing at them. The second one aimed his weapon. Without hesitation, Eli grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a snow dune. Plasma bolts hissed past, melting the snow into steam. The baby cried out, the sound piercing the cold air. Run, Eli shouted. Head for the ridge. He turned, firing 3 precise shots. One soldier fell. The other ducked for cover, shouting into his comms. Red flares lit the sky, a call for reinforcements. Eli fired again, then grabbed Lyra's hand. Go! They ran together through the snow, the sound of engines growing behind them. The baby's cries mixed with the roar of plasma fire, and somewhere behind them the drones returned, circling like vultures. But the human didn't stop. Not while the mother and her child still had a chance. He glanced back at the storm-torn horizon and muttered under his breath, If they want to fight, they'll get one. The snowstorm had thinned, but the cold was sharper than ever, biting through every layer of clothing and skin. Eli trudged forward through the frozen wasteland, his boots crunching through the ice. Behind him, Lyra struggled to keep pace, clutching her baby tight against her chest. The little one's breathing had grown weaker, each small gasp breaking her heart a little more. They had managed to escape the patrol, but barely. Now they were hiding in the shadows of a shattered ridge, the remains of an old mining transport half buried in the snow. The metal creaked softly in the wind, its old logo faded and forgotten by time. Eli used his gloved hands to pry open a rusted door, motioning Lyra to step inside. Come on, he whispered. We'll rest here. Inside the wreck, darkness wrapped around them. Eli activated a small emergency lamp, casting a dull orange light. The air was stale, frozen in time. Lyra knelt on the floor, unwrapping the baby carefully. Her fingers trembled. The infant's skin was colder now, almost gray. No, please, she whispered in her broken English. Her voice cracked with desperation. Breathe. Little one, breathe. Eli dropped his pack and knelt beside her, quickly checking the child's pulse. It was faint, almost gone. His chest tightened. He had seen soldiers die in his arms, friends fade away in battle, but this was worse. This was a life that had barely begun. Hang on, he muttered, pulling out his med kit. He injected a dose of nanogel into his palm, then hesitated. The gel was designed for humans, not alien biology. It could save the baby, or kill her instantly. Lyra looked at him, tears streaking her face. Help, please. Eli took a deep breath. All right, he whispered. We'll try it together. He handed her a small vial of glowing blue serum, the same she had used before, the medicine of her kind. "Mix it," he said, motioning with his hands. She understood. Their eyes met. Two strangers from different worlds united by the same fear. She poured a few drops of her serum into his palm, the glowing blue merging with the golden nanogel. The mix sizzled softly, the light pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Eli spread it gently over the baby's chest, his fingers trembling as he worked. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a faint breath, a small rise of the chest. The baby exhaled weakly, followed by another trembling inhale. Lyra gasped, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. You breathe." Eli let out a shaky sigh, leaning back. "Good girl," he murmured softly, his voice breaking with relief. "You're tougher than both of us, huh?" The baby whimpered softly, her tiny hand curling around Lyra's finger. The glow from the serum faded, leaving behind a soft warmth in the air. Eli smiled faintly, exhaustion finally catching up to him. He leaned against the metal wall, his breath fogging up in the cold. "She'll make it now," he said quietly. Lyra wiped her tears and looked at him. "You save her," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you did. I just helped." For the first time, a small, genuine smile appeared on her face. She hesitated, then reached out and touched his gloved hand. Her skin was still cold, but her touch carried something else. Trust. A rare, fragile thing born from shared struggle. The silence that followed was peaceful. The storm outside had calmed, and only the faint hum of the wind filled the air. Lyra rocked her baby gently, humming the same lullaby again. The song echoed softly through the metal chamber, full of warmth and sadness. Eli listened quietly, his eyes closing for a moment. He didn't understand the words, but he could feel the meaning in every note. "Beautiful," he whispered. Lyra looked at him, tilting her head. "Lullaby," she said softly. "For hope," he nodded. "Hope," he repeated, and she smiled faintly. But peace was short-lived. A faint sound broke through the calm, a rhythmic thumping in the distance. Eli's eyes snapped open. He crawled to the door and peered through a crack. Red lights moved across the horizon again. Drones. The enemy was sweeping the area once more. "Damn it," he hissed under his breath. Lyra sensed his worry. "They come again?" "Yeah," he said grimly. "We can't stay." He turned back to grab his pack, but something caught his eye, the strange pendant around Lyra's neck. It was glowing softly now, reacting to the serum they had mixed. He frowned. "What is that?" She looked down, startled. "Gift from tribe," she said. "For life bond. Life bond," he repeated. She nodded slowly. "If one save other. Life join, can feel..." "Heartbeat." Eli froze, staring at her. "You're saying that thing connected us?" Before she could answer, the baby made a small noise. The pendant pulsed once, bright and strong, then faded again. Eli felt a strange warmth in his chest, like a faint echo of the baby's heartbeat inside him. He shook his head. "That's impossible." But deep down he knew this galaxy had seen stranger things. The distant drone hum grew louder. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and looked at her. "Time to move again." "Stay close," she nodded, her eyes fierce now. The fear had turned into something stronger, resolve. As they stepped out into the cold once more, Eli glanced back at the wreck. The glow of the serum had left faint golden traces on the metal floor, like small burning veins of life in the middle of death. He whispered softly, "Hang in there, little one. We're not done yet." The wind howled as they disappeared into the snow once more. 3 heartbeats now moving as one, mother, child, and human, bound by something far deeper than survival, and far away among the stars. The hunter fleet changed course, drawn to the faint pulse of energy left behind by that strange, mixed serum. The real fight was just beginning. The sky burned faintly orange as the first light of dawn crept over the frozen plains. The storm had passed, but its silence was worse than its roar. Every gust of wind carried whispers of danger. Eli and Lyra had found shelter inside a sunken communication tower, half buried, half frozen, a relic of an old war long forgotten. Eli crouched near the remains of the control console, brushing off layers of frost with his glove. The old human symbol still faintly marked the metal, Terra Command Outpost 09. He traced it silently, remembering the stories of how humanity once ruled the stars before being driven back, forgotten like the ruins around them. Lyra sat on the floor nearby, her baby wrapped tightly in a heated blanket. The little one's breathing had steadied through the night. Every rise and fall of that tiny chest felt like a small miracle. Eli turned on his wrist scanner and frowned. Power's low. Comms are dead. We're running out of time. Lyra tilted her head, her voice soft but filled with concern. Time for what? Eli looked up, his eyes hard. For them to find us. The drones last night were scouts. That means a raider ship will come next, armed, scanning for survivors. The alien mother went pale. Raiders. Kill all. Not if we move first. He pulled open a control hatch on the wall, revealing an old distress beacon covered in frost. He connected his portable power cell and watched the lights flicker weakly. If I can send a signal, maybe command, or what's left of it, can pick us up. But before he could finish his thought, the beacon came to life with a sudden flare of blue light. It pulsed brighter than expected, too bright. Lyra gasped. What, you do? Eli stepped back. That's not me. The light grew in intensity, filling the entire room with a cold electric glow. A faint hum filled the air, followed by an automated voice, distorted and broken by age. Distress signal activated. Frequency, unauthorized. Source unknown. Equation detected. Eli's heart sank. No. That wasn't supposed to happen. He slammed the controls, trying to shut it off, but the beacon kept pulsing. Its light spread through the cracks of the ruined tower, shining into the open air. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. Signal. They see. Yeah, Eli muttered. And not the good guys. Outside, miles away, red blips appeared on a hovering raider ship scanner. The beacon's signal burned like fire in the darkness. Within minutes, multiple engines ignited across the horizon. The hunters were coming. Inside the tower, Lyra's panic grew. She held her baby close, her voice trembling. We run. We hide. Eli grabbed his gear, loading the last of his ammo. No, if we run, they'll track the heat. We have to make them chase a ghost. She looked at him, confused. Ghost? He smirked faintly. Something they can't catch. He unplugged his power cell, rerouted it through the beacon's damaged relay, and twisted two loose wires together. Sparks jumped and the console screen flickered with error codes. There, he muttered. If I overload this, it'll send a fake signal, an echo. Maybe they'll follow it. But before he could complete the process, a loud explosion echoed outside. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Lyra screamed softly. Eli peeked through a crack in the wall. Dark ships, small fast raiders, were descending through the clouds. Their red lights painted the snow crimson. They're here already, he whispered. He turned to Lyra. Take the baby and head to the tunnels under this tower. I'll draw them off, her eyes widened. No, you come too. Eli shook his head firmly. If they see all of us, none of us make it. You hide. I'll lead them away, then find you. Lyra grabbed his wrist desperately. You save us before... Now we save you. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes burned with determination. Eli smiled faintly, removing his hand gently. You've got your world in your arms. Don't lose it. He pressed the glowing pendant she wore, the one that had connected their lives. If this thing really links us, you'll know I'm alive. Trust it. Before she could argue again, he ran toward the door, rifle in hand. The cold wind slammed into him as he stepped outside. Snow whipped across his face, the light from the beacon painting the ground an eerie blue. From the sky, 3 ships roared down, firing plasma bolts. The ground exploded in bursts of steam and fire. Eli rolled behind a rock formation, aiming his rifle and returning fire. His shots struck one of the drones, sending it crashing into the ice. Inside the tower, Lyra held her baby close, whispering prayers in her native tongue. Every explosion outside made her flinch. Suddenly, the beacon's light began to shift, its pulsing no longer random but rhythmic. She looked at it in confusion. It was syncing with her baby's breathing. The pendant around her neck glowed again, and she gasped softly. She could feel him, Eli's heartbeat, fast, strong, alive, but strained. He was fighting. She looked at the sleeping child and then at the glowing beacon. He fight for us, she whispered. We fight for him. Taking a deep breath, she stood, wrapping her baby to her chest, and moved toward the console. Her fingers hovered over the alien crystal pendant. Please, guide me, she murmured. The pendant pulsed and the console's interface shifted, its symbols transforming into ones she understood. Lyra pressed a sequence of keys. The beacon's blue light turned gold, shooting a blinding flare into the sky. It wasn't just a distress call now, it was a message. A single symbol burned in the air above the tower. Help. Far across the frozen wasteland, a dormant satellite, one still loyal to old human command, caught the signal. A faint ping echoed in deep space. Eli fired his last round, explosions lighting up the dawn sky. His ears rang, his breath heavy. Then, through the chaos, he saw it. The golden flare rising high like a sunrise in the storm. He smiled through blood and exhaustion. "Good girl," he muttered. "You did it." The ships turned, now distracted by the massive flare. Eli took the chance and vanished into the snow, limping toward the southern ridge where the tunnels led. The beacon finally went dark, smoke rising from its ruined core, but its echo, the golden signal of hope, was already racing through the stars, reaching places neither of them could imagine. The blizzard returned with a vengeance. Snow spiraled violently across the plains, swallowing every trace of color and sound. The air itself seemed alive, cold, sharp, and merciless. Yet through that chaos, one figure pushed forward. Eli Ward staggered through the white storm, rifle in one hand, his other arm clutched tight against a wound on his side. Blood had frozen along the cracks in his armor, but he barely felt it anymore. He had one thought left: get them to safety. Behind him, through the swirling snow, red lights moved closer, 3 raider ships hovering low, their scanners slicing through the storm. They had seen the golden beacon before it died, and now they were hunting whoever sent it. Eli ducked behind a ridge of ice, panting hard. The wind howled around him, drowning out the sound of his own heartbeat. His visor flickered, HUD barely functioning. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered, smacking the side of his helmet. The display blinked back to life, showing 3 heat signatures, closing fast. He could run, but they'd find Lyra and the baby. He knew what raiders did to survivors. There would be no mercy. Eli gritted his teeth and took out a small metallic sphere from his pack, a human plasma charge, military grade. He only had one left. He looked at it and whispered, "Guess it's just you and me, old friend." He set it into the snow and armed it with a shaking thumb. The countdown began to blink in faint red numbers. Then he crouched, rifle raised, waiting, miles beneath him, deep in the tunnel under the ruined tower. Lyra huddled near the entrance, holding her child close. The faint glow from the pendant pulsed in time with Eli's heartbeat. Every pulse was weaker than the last. She could feel his pain, each breath, each movement, every burst of adrenaline. Her lips trembled. "He fights still," she whispered. The baby stirred, opening her eyes for the first time since the storm. They glowed softly, golden light reflecting the connection between them all. The pendant around Lyra's neck pulsed brighter, echoing the rhythm of both hearts, hers and the humans. Outside, the storm's roar grew louder. Eli saw the first ship appear through the white blur, sleek, black and armored with claw-like landing legs. The raider's insignia glowed blood red on its hull. He took a deep breath and aimed. The rifle's barrel steamed in the cold. As the first raider stepped into view, Eli fired. The shot hit true. Sparks burst from the alien's chest as it fell backward into the snow. Another screamed in an alien tongue, returning fire. Plasma bolts hissed through the blizzard, melting holes in the snow walls around him. Eli ducked, reloaded, and shot again. 2 more went down. The rest spread out, circling. "Clever bastards," he muttered. He grabbed the plasma charge remote and waited. The red lights of the raiders' suits flickered closer through the storm. His vision blurred, his breath growing short. His body was failing, but his will burned hotter than the cold. Then a faint sound in his helmet radio. Static, followed by a familiar voice, soft but urgent. "Eli, can you hear me?" Lyra. His heart jumped.
He hadn't given her a comm link.
Yet her voice echoed clear in his head. "Please, come back. Baby needs you." He froze, staring at the snow ahead. Was it real or the pendant? Somehow their bond had become more than symbolic. It was alive, he whispered back, though he didn't know if she could hear him. "I'll come back. If there's still a road left." The wind screamed louder, drowning his words. He looked at the blinking detonator. 10 seconds. He took one last look at the horizon. the raider ships now lowering, their cannons warming. He thought of Lyra's trembling hands, the baby's soft cry, the small spark of hope he'd seen in their eyes. Not today, he growled. He pressed the trigger. The world erupted. A blinding blue light tore through the storm, consuming everything. The shockwave hit like thunder, sending shards of ice and fire in every direction. The raider ships spiraled, their engines bursting into flames before crashing into the frozen ground. The explosion echoed across the plains, turning the storm into a glowing sea of light and snow. Down in the tunnel, Lyra screamed as the ground shook violently. The pendant around her neck blazed gold, then dimmed to a faint pulse. Her heart raced. "Eli!" she cried, rushing toward the tunnel mouth, but the baby's soft cry stopped her. She fell to her knees, clutching the child tightly. "Please, please be alive." The storm above raged on, now colored by distant firelight. For long minutes there was only silence. Then a faint sound, boots crunching in the snow. Lyra looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. A dark silhouette appeared through the storm. He was limping, armor scorched, blood frozen along his sleeve, but he was alive. Eli stumbled forward, his body barely holding together. He dropped to one knee, exhausted. "Told you," he rasped with a weak smile. "I don't die easy." Lyra rushed to him, helping him sit, her hands shaking. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering, "You come back." He gave a small nod, eyes half closed. "Yeah, but next time you're carrying me." She laughed through her tears, a soft, broken sound that filled the icy air with warmth. The baby reached out from her blanket, touching Eli's face with tiny fingers. The pendant glowed again, stronger now, connecting all three of their heartbeats into one rhythm. Outside, the storm began to ease, the first real sunlight breaking through the clouds. The snow glistened like diamonds around them. Eli looked up at the light and whispered, "Guess we survived another day." But far beyond the frozen ridge, deep in the wreckage of a destroyed raider ship, a distress signal blinked weakly, one that transmitted directly to orbit. More ships were coming. The war wasn't over yet. The storm had finally fallen silent. Snow drifted gently through the broken sky, glowing gold in the light of a new dawn. The frozen world that once looked lifeless now shimmered beneath the rising sun. Steam still rose from the wreckage of the raider ships, their metal husks scattered like black scars across the white plains. Eli Ward sat on the edge of a snow ridge, his armor cracked, his breath shallow but steady. He stared at the horizon where the sunlight cut through the last of the storm clouds. His fingers were stiff, burned and shaking, but his eyes still held that stubborn spark that refused to die. A soft sound pulled him back, a small cry. He turned his head slowly. Lyra was walking toward him through the mist, her cloak billowing in the gentle wind, her baby bundled against her chest. The pendant on her neck glowed faintly with each of their heartbeats. Eli smiled weakly. "Guess I wasn't dreaming." Lyra knelt beside him, her golden eyes filled with tears. "You fight, Storm." "Again," she whispered, her voice trembling. He chuckled faintly. "Storms and idiots, that's my specialty." She reached out, her cold fingers brushing his face. "You hurt?" she said softly. He shook his head, wincing slightly. "Just scratched." The baby cooed softly, tiny hands reaching out toward him. Eli extended a gloved finger, and the infant gripped it weakly. The warmth that touched him was small but powerful. It was life. Against all odds, they had survived. For a long moment, the three of them just sat there, surrounded by snow and silence. No blasters, no screams, no wind, just the faint sound of a child breathing and the rhythm of two hearts beating in sync. Then, the faint hum of an engine echoed in the distance. Eli tensed, his soldier's instinct instantly waking. He reached for his rifle, but Lyra placed a hand on his arm. "Not raiders," she whispered. Different sound. He listened again. She was right. The pitch was lower, steadier, a rescue ship's drive. He glanced at the sky. Through the pale mist, a small silhouette appeared, sleek, silver, marked with the ancient insignia of Terra Command. Eli's heart skipped a beat. "Human rescue vessel." "That's impossible." Lyra looked at him with confusion. "Your people?" "Yeah," he breathed, his eyes wide. "My people." The ship descended slowly, its light scanning the snow. A hatch opened and figures in white exosuits stepped out, weapons ready but not aimed. The leader approached, visor shining in the morning light. "Captain Eli Ward?" The voice crackled through the comms. By the stars, it really is you. Command picked up your beacon. Been tracking it all night. Eli laughed weakly, relief washing through him. About time someone answered. The rescuers rushed forward, helping him stand. Lyra backed away nervously, holding her baby tight. Her instincts told her to hide. Humans were not kind in her people's stories. Eli noticed her fear and raised his hand weakly. She's with me, he said firmly. Both of them. The commander hesitated. Sir, she's alive, Eli interrupted sharply. And that's all that matters. The rescuers exchanged glances, then nodded. One of them approached Lyra slowly, offering a thermal wrap. She blinked in surprise but accepted it. The warmth from it made her eyes soften. Eli leaned heavily against one of the rescuers, his strength fading. Get them to the med bay first, he said. The kid's weak. Don't let anyone separate them. Yes, sir, the commander replied. As they moved toward the ship, Lyra looked back at the endless field of snow where they had nearly died. Storm end, she said softly. Eli nodded. Yeah, but something tells me this isn't the end of the story. Inside the ship, the warm air felt like heaven. Medical drones hovered, scanning wounds and patching armor. Eli sat on a stretcher, his vision blurry but his heart at peace. Across from him, Lyra held her baby under a soft lamp. The child's skin had regained color, glowing faintly in the warmth. One of the medics whispered, That's an alien infant. Genetic readings show cross-bonded nanotech traces. How? Eli gave a tired grin. Long story. The medic looked at him, puzzled. You risked everything for them, why? Eli looked at Lyra, who smiled gently as the baby squeezed her finger. He shrugged. Because sometimes saving one life is how you save yourself. The medic said nothing more. Hours later, the ship broke through the upper atmosphere. From the observation window, the planet below looked calm, a sphere of white and blue. Lyra stood beside Eli, gazing out silently. What happens now? She asked softly. Eli looked out too. I don't know, he admitted. But wherever I go, you're not alone anymore. She turned to him, her expression softening. We same now. You, me, her, she said, placing her hand on her baby's chest. One heart, Eli smiled faintly. Yeah, one heart. The child let out a soft coo. And the pendant around Lyra's neck glowed brightly, reflecting in both their eyes. Outside, the sun rose higher, spilling golden light across the endless snow below. The storm that had once separated species, worlds, and hearts was gone. In its place, warmth had returned, brought not by technology or power, but by something simpler and stronger. Hope.